Let's be honest for a second. A few years ago, if you asked almost anyone who the biggest rapper in the world was, the answer would have been easy. It was Drake. No debate, no discussion, no long argument in the comments. Drake wasn't just winning for a moment. He was dominating for an entire era. Every album went #1, every feature became a hit, every verse turned into a headline, and for a long time, it honestly felt like nothing could touch him. But if you've been paying attention lately, you've probably noticed something feels different now. And no, I'm not saying Drake is suddenly irrelevant, because that would be ridiculous. He's still one of the biggest artists on the planet. He still has insane numbers. He still gets streams that most rappers can only dream about. But the image, the aura, that untouchable feeling he had for over a decade, that's where the cracks are starting to show. And once people start seeing cracks in an empire that looked perfect for that long, the conversation changes fast. Because this isn't just about music anymore. It's about reputation. It's about whether Drake is still the untouchable king of modern rap, or whether we're watching the beginning of a very slow but very real decline. And the craziest part? The signs have been there for a while. Most people just ignored them, because when someone stays on top for that long, we assume they'll stay there forever. But music doesn't work like that. Fame definitely doesn't work like that. And hip-hop is probably the one genre where people are constantly waiting for the king to look vulnerable. So let's really talk about it. Because if you strip away the charts, the hits, the memes, the fan pages, and the giant streaming numbers, Drake's position in the culture doesn't feel as untouchable as it used to. And depending on how the next few years go, this might be the moment people look back on and say, yeah, this is where it started changing. Now, to understand why this matters so much, you have to remember just how impossible Drake's run has been. This wasn't a normal rap career. This wasn't even a normal superstar career. Drake basically turned himself into the soundtrack of an entire generation. He went from a guy people knew from TV into one of the most commercially successful artists in music history. That doesn't happen by accident. He figured out how to adapt faster than almost anyone else. He could rap, he could sing, he could make club records, he could make emotional records, he could make summer hits, heartbreak songs, late night songs, toxic songs, introspective songs, and somehow all of it still sounded like Drake. He didn't just chase trends. He absorbed them, reshaped them, and made them work for him. That's why he lasted so long. Every time people thought he was about to cool off, he found another angle, another sound, another feature, another wave. For years, Drake didn't feel like an artist competing with everyone else. He felt like the default setting of mainstream rap, and that kind of dominance changes the way people look at you. When you stay at the top for that long, fans stop asking whether you're successful. They start asking whether you're overrated, whether you're too calculated, whether you're too safe, whether the numbers are hiding something the culture is beginning to feel. And that's exactly where things started getting interesting, because for a long time, Drake's biggest strength was consistency. But eventually, consistency can start feeling predictable, especially in a genre that values hunger, risk, reinvention, and lyrical dominance. And if we're being real, one of the biggest criticisms Drake has been dealing with for years is that he's become too polished, too strategic, too protected, too good at the business side of rap, and not always as convincing on the raw, hungry side that people still respect the most. That criticism didn't matter much when the hits kept coming, but then the tone around him started shifting. Suddenly, the conversation wasn't just, Drake dropped another hit. It became, does Drake still have the same impact? It became, is Drake making music because he has something to say, or because he knows how to stay in rotation? And those two things are very different. You can survive a while off momentum. You can survive a while off brand power. You can survive a while because you've built such a huge audience that almost anything you do will generate attention. But eventually, the culture starts asking a more dangerous question. Are people listening because they're excited, or because they're used to you being there? That's where things get uncomfortable. Because once an artist goes from feeling essential to feeling expected, the energy changes. And the truth is, for all of Drake's success, there's been a growing sense that people are no longer reacting to him with the same awe they used to. They still listen, they still talk, they still post, but the fear factor, the feeling that Drake was just operating on a different level from everyone else, that's not as strong as it once was. And in hip-hop, That matters more than almost anything. Then there's the other side of it, the side Drake has never really been able to escape, the constant accusations that he's too calculated, too image-conscious, too obsessed with controlling the narrative. For years, he's been one of the smartest artists in the game when it comes to branding himself. But what looks smart from the outside can also start to look artificial if people feel like they're watching a machine instead of a person. And that's part of why his critics have become louder. Because Drake has spent so long being perfect at the system that people started wanting to see whether he could handle real pressure when the system no longer protected him. And then, of course, there's the beef. You can't talk about Drake's current position without talking about how much his image depends on dominance. Drake isn't just a successful artist, he's an artist who built a huge part of his legacy on being the guy everyone wanted to challenge, but no one could truly dethrone. That image only works as long as people believe it. The moment fans start thinking another artist outperformed you, embarrassed you, or exposed a weakness you couldn't cover up, the conversation changes immediately. And the reason that matters so much in Drake's case is because he was always more than just a hit maker. He wanted respect too. He wanted commercial success and cultural control. He wanted to be the biggest and still be treated like one of the greatest. That's a hard balance to maintain, because once the greatest part starts getting questioned, all the numbers in the world don't fully save you. You can see it in the way people talk about him now. A few years ago, Drake criticism felt like a minority opinion. Now, it feels normal. People openly debate whether he's declining, whether he sounds inspired, whether he's repeating himself, whether the formula is finally wearing thin. And here's where I think it gets really serious. Because once people start viewing your success as formula instead of magic, you lose something very hard to get back. Mystique. Drake used to feel inevitable. Now he feels discussable. And that sounds like a small difference, but it's huge. When an artist feels inevitable, every move looks powerful. When an artist feels discussable, every move gets dissected. Every album becomes a referendum. Every feature gets compared. Every lyric gets judged harder. People stop experiencing the music and start grading the performance. That's a dangerous place to be when your entire career has been built on staying one step ahead of everyone. And if we're really being honest, part of Drake's problem is that he's been so successful for so long that people are tired of the machine. Not necessarily tired of him as a person, not even always tired of the music, but tired of the feeling that he always has to dominate every corner of the conversation. At a certain point, overexposure starts looking like weakness, not because you disappear, but because people get too used to you. And Drake has been everywhere for so long that the only thing louder than his success now might be the fatigue surrounding it. That doesn't mean he's done, not even close, but it does mean he's in a different phase now. This is no longer the phase where everyone automatically assumes Drake wins, because he's Drake. This is the phase where people want proof. They want hunger. They want risk. They want something that doesn't feel like it came out of a boardroom designed to protect the brand. Because whether fans admit it or not, they miss the version of Drake that felt dangerous. The version that felt hungry enough to prove something. The version that wasn't just reacting to the culture, but bending it. And maybe that's the biggest problem he's facing right now. Not that he's failing, not that he's flopping, but that people are no longer sure they need him in the same way they once did. For an artist at Drake's level, that's a serious shift, because he doesn't need to lose everything for the story to change. He doesn't need a total collapse. He doesn't need some dramatic overnight disaster. All it takes is for the audience to slowly stop seeing him as untouchable. And if that's already happening, then what we're watching isn't the end of Drake's career. It's something more subtle. It's the beginning of the moment where one of the most dominant artists of the last decade starts getting judged like he's vulnerable for the first time in years. And once that happens, every release matters more. Every move matters more. Every mistake looks bigger. Every rivalry feels riskier. Because the shield that protected him for so long starts disappearing. Now look, Drake could absolutely prove everyone wrong again. That's what makes this so interesting. We've seen him survive criticism before. We've seen him adapt before. We've seen him turn doubt into momentum before. But the difference now is that the doubt feels heavier. It doesn't feel like random hate anymore. It feels like people are genuinely reassessing his place in the culture. And when that starts happening to someone who built their whole brand on being number one, it changes everything. So no, I'm not saying Drake is finished. I'm saying something more interesting than that. I'm saying the version of Drake that felt untouchable might be. And if he can't replace that image with something stronger, more honest, or more inspired, then the slow crack people are starting to notice might turn into something much bigger. Because in rap, staying on top is never just about numbers. It's about perception. It's about respect. It's about whether people still believe your dominance is real, or whether they're just watching the leftovers of an empire that already peaked. And right now, whether Drake fans want to admit it or not, that question is starting to hang over everything. Maybe he answers it with his next move. Maybe he shuts everyone up again. Or maybe this is the start of the moment where one of the biggest careers in modern music stops feeling invincible. And if that really is happening, then we're not just watching another chapter in Drake's career. We're watching the first real signs that the era he dominated for so long might finally be starting to crack.